So thank you. Kim just started recording. So if you want to catch up to this later, or you have someone else who would like to see it, just let them know that we have it recorded, and it will be on our what page? The forums page on the Green Burial Council website. So to get started, I'm Lee Webster, the president of the education side of things, and I'm going to sort of get us started tonight, but I want to then open things up. So let me go through my list of good stuff for you to get started. Just take a minute. First, to all of those who are joining us, who've been here before, and also for those who are here for the first time, welcome to the Advocacy peer-to-peer forum. As I said, we got about 98 people signed up. Usually we get about half that on the call. That's still a lot of people. So it's not easy to have conversations back and forth with each other. So one of the things that we do is use that chat button. It might look like more on your screen. It lights up orange when we have something to look at. And it's a great place for us to keep either put our ideas, ask our questions, capture thoughts, and later on, Kim and I will be using that to put together a sort of a post-mortem on this and send it out to everyone. So just go right ahead and use that. I do want to introduce Kim Adams. She's the person who's our moderator behind the scenes. She helps us keep everybody in line because you're kind of folks who are going to get out of control. So, and then we already talked about getting on the list. Kim and I will be monitoring that chat as we are talking to make sure that people do get heard when we can. We may go over time, in which case we'll capture those comments and send them later. I also want to thank everybody who is very generously donating to help us with these kinds of programs. Every bit goes a long way. We're just starting up this organization again, so it's this side of the organization, the education part. So we are looking for funding, as every 501c3 nonprofit is out there. Another piece I want to remind you of is that we have started something called the Green Burial Forum page on Facebook. So you'll be able to go there, join, and become a member, and then be able to continue to have conversations with the people that you see here. So that's another way to network and get to know what's going on with people and continue the conversation. So because we have so many people on the call, and because this is pretty much in my wheelhouse, this putting together advocacy materials is what I've been doing for the last about 12 years or so, and specifically for organizations like the National Home Funeral Alliance and the National End of Life Doula Alliance, and specifically the Green Burial Council. So what I would like to do is just hijack for a few minutes and do a screen share here and run you through some of the advocacy materials and tools that we already have in place. One of the reasons I wanted to do this particular forum was to try to find a way to reach as many people with these materials so that nobody's out there reinventing. We've got a lot of this stuff ready to go. What I'm going to be really interested in hearing from you is, when we're done, is what else do you need? How can we find it? And what kinds of things do you have? What ideas and items do you have to share with others? Because we also have a forum resources page. After we're done with these forums, we can upload all kinds of materials to share with other people on the website. So we have a place to capture for you to go to. So without any more chat, I'm going to see if I can share this screen and show you what we've got so far to go on. I do want to check. I'm just checking the chat right now so that we can look for this. Kim, could you talk to Liz, who is trying to get their camera in place? And looks like we're also having a little trouble with an audio. So if you could check those, Kim, that would be great. Thank you. All right. And here we go. Can everyone see? It should be the Green Burial Council website. Wonderful. Okay, so to get to a lot of our materials, you're just going to go directly to the education page. I'm sure many of you already have been here before, but I just want to run you through a few things that have to do specifically with trying to advocate for green burial in your community, in your churches, at libraries, schools, all those types of places that will help you get there. So we go to education first, and I would take you right down to GBC publications. That would be the first place I would go. These are original publications that we've developed that are really helpful. I'll try not to make you blind by scrolling here. But these materials are set up very specifically to both address the needs of the people in your audience and also to give you what you need to be able to stay consistent with the message that we're all trying to put out together. So if you haven't discovered these documents yet, this is a great place to get started. Particularly when we're talking about, again, planning and advocacy issues, because a lot of times when you're speaking to audiences, they just don't know where to begin. So by giving them something that they can have in hand, it's great to be sending them to the website, sending them to download these things themselves, but we know that most people need to have something right there so that they can get themselves started. One other thing I would point out is the 10 things you can do or say to promote green burial. This is a great way for all of us to get on board with the message. It's a simple one sheet that just says, here are the ways we can persuade people, right? A lot of the work that we're doing is about persuasion. So that's where I would send you first. I'm going to slip back up here. Second place I would send you is to educational tools. And these were what we've developed specifically for people in the community to take out. And you'll notice one of the things I do is I print on the back of the 10 things to persuade people. I print the top 10 real answers to questions real people ask about green burial, because that is also, then they can flip it over and they've got their most burning questions, all about animals digging up graves, which never happens. All of those kinds of questions get answered in one quick place. And that seems very important to people. They need to get over their fear first, and then we can kind of get them to the next step. All of these are things that you could print out and hand out, according to what is appropriate for you. I find that I have a shorter excerpt from the Science Behind Green Burial document. That's just a 2-page, and people grab that very quickly. They're very, very interested in that, particularly having to do with soil and water. The case for green burial, case for home funerals, I back that up and hand it out. That gives people just a really nice, it's nice for them to read, but more importantly, it's a great piece for them to then hand on to somebody else who may not have been at the event that you're speaking at. So that's a good spot. Next thing is that we've already got a PowerPoint presentation ready for you. And this has got all kinds of images in it. It's got the most, I update this periodically, so it's got the most up-to-date statistics in it. And we also have this document, which is a helpful tips for giving the presentation. It goes through exactly how you can go in and change out those pictures that you want, bring in what you need. How you can move the slides around and make it your own. This is just meant to be a way for you to get started. And again, all of us having a consistent message around this, very important. These are some items here under rack cards and bumper stickers. These are things that you can simply download the PDF of these, take them to your local printer, and print off as many copies as you want to. We do this because we don't have a fulfillment center. We don't run a whole bunch of these off, and then, I have in the past spent years almost daily going to the post office, sending people these cards, and it's too much to do. It's more cost effective in the end for you to run them off yourself. So that's a good piece. And here's another spot that I just put up a few days ago. I went through all the infographics that I've ever come across around all of this. They're wonderful to slip into any documents that you might have, slip into your presentation. And there are quite a few of them. And it's things, people love seeing it. You know, what happened to your body when you die? They just love it. So check that out. And then the last thing, I think it's the last thing I was going to show you. Let me take a quick look. The green burial glossary is another really important piece. So that, again, what weird things. So that, again, we're all talking about the same things and we're defining them the same way. That's an important piece. Let's see what else. Well, there's certainly plenty of materials, both blogs, articles, books, and so on. If you were to go through this, I always take a handful of these books and lay them out. I might even take some of these list of videos or a list of blog pieces or articles and just sort of run off a few of those so that people can find them later. Those are really helpful. And the last thing I want to show you is this. If you go to peer-to-peer forums and then go to the resource page, I've put a link up already here to the educational tools that I was just showing you, the flyers and so on. And we're just going to continue to use this. If you have more things that you want to add to this list to share with other people, that would be fantastic. So that's what I've got for you, just so that we could get those things out of the way and get on to what you're really interested in talking about. One thing that I didn't speak to was, I mean, I mentioned a few things like, you know, talking at your local library. And, you know, I do a lot of, I've been doing these for many years now. Both that kind of a group, I do a lot of in-services for hospices and hospitals. I teach, either as a guest lecturer in death and dying classes, all the way from community colleges to, I teach a short course at Dartmouth College and at the University of New Hampshire on all of this stuff. And you know, I get invited to come do it, but I also sometimes nudge people a little bit and say, I have something interesting for you. So don't be afraid to get out there and just, you know, start peddle your show, and things will kind of go from there. When I'm teaching, as I say, it might be just an hour and a half guest lecture. It might be, you know, a 6-hour course, or, you know, on multiple days, or I might do an entire weekend course. So it depends on what I've got the bandwidth for and what people are interested in. But I want to turn you over for a minute before we open things up. I want to turn you over to Ann Weston, who is one of our board members as well at the GBC, and also has her own state organization in North Carolina. And she's putting together a really interesting project I'd like you to hear about. So Ann, why don't you come on, and I'm unmuting you. There you go.
I do have a very interesting project coming up this summer. I have been, my company is the Green Burial Project. If it sounds suspiciously like the Green Burial Council, that is by intent. I wanted to be very clear with people what my focus was. My company is education and advocacy only. I have no product to sell. And my primary interest is in green burial. But I've found that there are an awful lot of people who like to hear me talk, and short of reading the yellow pages, I decided to build some other talks. And so I have now a sheet of little talks that I give, and I can hand the sheets out wherever I go to talk and say, if you'd like me to come back, I can talk on advanced directives, and I can talk on alternative body disposition practices, from donating your body to the Carnivore Preservation Trust to be eaten by lions and tigers and bears, to shooting yourself out of fireworks. So I've got a little list of those, but just this summer, this winter, I've discovered that with all of the pro bono work that I've done over the last few years, a great number of people in the business owe me favors. And so I am pulling together a 5-part series to be held at the local public library on Sunday afternoons. I'll be co-sponsoring. I will lead this, but my co-sponsor is the Department on Aging. And the first event will be a showing of the documentary A Will for the Woods. We are very fortunate that the cemetery identified, the Green Burial Cemetery identified in A Will for the Woods, is here in North Carolina. So I will have as panelists the cemeterian, Diane Maskovich, the home funeral guide, Jenny Bingham, who lives in Hillsborough, my hometown, and the funeral director who handled that project for them. The next one will be Partners in Death Care, which will be a little death expo, and we're going to have people there on anything connected with death. But of course, there will be a green burial section highlighted there. The third one will be my general talk, which is a case for green burial and conservation burial. I developed that talk before I found the one that Lee just told you about. And mine includes all sorts of facts and figures, but it's personalized for whatever county that I am presenting in. You can get specific information, financial information, from your local Funeral Consumers Alliance. We've got a very active chapter in our area that last year did their price survey in 8 or 9 counties. And so every time I move to a different county when I'm giving these talks, I can give numbers that are pertinent to that particular county. The fourth section will be the future of death care in North Carolina. We will also have a tiny segment on green burial because it's my show. I get to stuff green burial in around the edges every chance I get, and nobody can deny me. And then the last one will be on death cafes. People around here are embracing death cafes as soon as they find out about them. And so what I'd like to do is bring in 3 of my favorite death cafe facilitators, have them explain a little bit about the death cafe concept, and then break the group up into 3 small death cafes so that people have got this interactive experience. And every single time I'm doing this, Green Burial Project, Green Burial Council, and the Green Burial Ground that we are working on in my community gets at least a plug, and sometimes the entire event. And so I guess what I'm saying is talk to anybody who will listen to you. Go any place where people will set up a table. I have often told people that I will talk to 1 person or 100, and I have done that. And my idea of success is every single body that I divert from a conventional funeral or a cremation is a success for me. And I'm not stopping till I get my own green burial ground in North Durham County. And I think we are on track to be able to accept our first customer in the winter of this year. So that's kind of what I do in my area. It's just beating the bushes. And as Lee said, you'd go to churches and retirement communities, and I speak at Duke and I speak at Elon University. And I speak in neighborhood association buildings and at the Department on Aging, at hospices. Just anybody who's ever going to die needs to hear your message.
That's great, Ann. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, listen, let me see what we've got up here on the chat. Not seeing anybody jumping forward. So why don't you just unmute and speak to us? Tell us what you're thinking about, what you need, what your ideas are.
I see a church group here up in my left-hand corner, the UU Church of Evansville. What are you folks interested in?
Green burial in general. We have a cemetery here that's going to start doing it. We also have a death cafe, and we're interested in knowing how you get the word out. And we also have a spin-off from that called Death and Donuts.
Uh-huh.
So maybe she wanted to be able to have speakers and agendas and things that Death Cafe does too. So
Yep.
yeah, so this is great. So how do you get the word out about your Death Cafe?
Well, Sarah Williams, who is 2 blocks down from you on my screen, is a Death Cafe facilitator in our area, and she can help you with that. I attend 3 Death Cafes so that I can cross-pollinate. My business is education, and so I learn from everybody I can, and then I spread that information back out to everybody I can. But Sarah can tell you how to advertise and to build hers. She's had it going 5 years, and you know, sometimes there are 25 people there.
Hello, UU Church of Evansville. As I love to say to people from Indiana, who's your daddy? The Death Cafe, when I first began, and the reason I started the Death Cafe was because I got so tired of waiting for someone else to do it. We live in a university-rich area, and I couldn't believe that, you know, I had heard about Death Cafe and nobody was doing it. So I called local newspapers where there's a community calendar. I had them run an ad about Death Cafe. I just got the word out to as many people in my network as I could and asked them to come. At that time, we were meeting in a little sort of restaurant diner, and I let all the downtown folks know that we would be holding this Death Cafe, and it has just grown. If you go to deathcafe.com, they are probably going to even have more ideas for you. You could go to the radio. Maybe there's a local radio station that might be friendly enough to have you come on and talk about what is a Death Cafe, how did it begin, and I wish you luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we do Facebook events, and there's also like a local TV show we can get on, so we're doing that.
That's fabulous. That's great. And other than just at your church, if there is a countywide, statewide, well, you're going to stay local. So if there's a network of other churches that you're affiliated with, you could go through that church network.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think it should be noted that Death Cafes are supposed to be neutral. So they don't really want people to come in and be telling them, pontificating about one particular thing. So I found that, you can still manage it. You can still talk about green burial within context to your own interests, but just know that you can't just go to a Death Cafe and take it over for green burial. So I'm noticing on the chat, several people are coming in talking about being involved with Death Cafe. So that is a good way to reach people if people show up. I think it's less of an advocacy position. It's more of a personal position. So I'd kind of like to move on as well into, I'm noticing, and I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. You've written that you're hosting Death Cafes, also as Nicola. Wait a minute. It keeps moving on me. You are a cemetery commissioner and has a section in the cemetery designated for green burial. And you're asking for best practices, correct? Yeah, talk to me. Unmute yourself and talk to me. There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I have used some of the material on the Green Burial Council website, but I see that you have that, I think it's sample guidebook that I wanted. It looks like, ooh, what's that? But it's not live. But that kind of thing I'm so interested in. Just every time, just going along and making each decision, would be so good to know what other people have done and what works and reasons behind it and that kind of thing to make decisions that are best for our cemetery.
Yeah, I think that's that's the tough part, is that we can't quite tell you everything and every step because everybody is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good time though to plug for you the another organization, the Conservation Burial Alliance, which is a group of the conservation level cemetery operators in the U.S.
Okay.
And we've been meeting for about a year and a half now. And one of the major projects that we're working on is putting together best practices specific. And the thing is, we're doing it specific to conservation level cemeteries so that everybody else can kind of use that as a model. So there are some things in the works. If you look at the conservation page and the frequently asked questions, I think you'll find more
Okay.
information that might be helpful along with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and really, I mean, that's what makes this work so difficult is that we're looking at different levels of cemeteries. We're looking at different constituencies, right? And for me, advocacy has to do with reaching the average person who is ready to hear what the options are. And we want to be as accurate as we can be, but it's still so new. It's very hard to nail down what those things look like. And that's why Anne's Anne, did you talk about the back of your business card? This is another piece too. Have a business card. Even if it just says your name and a phone number or an email address, you don't even have to say on it what you're doing. Just have something to hand to people. When you're at the grocery store, I don't care where you are. The number of places where I've gotten gigs to speak that made no sense at all to me. So have something in hand. But I want you to see what Anne has got.
Lee, while she's looking for her card,
Yeah.
I want to tell my Hoosier people that I saw this 2 suggestions on the chat. Do social media, put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also you could do a flyer. I remember doing flyers and use your library to help you get the word out for your Death Cafe.
Excellent ideas. Thanks.
I'm back with the business card. This, which you probably are going to have difficulty seeing.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay. So that's the front, and here's the back. No embalming, no burial vaults, no impervious containers. And when I go to a talk, everybody gets this card along with some other stuff. But I tell them straight up that if they remember nothing, they've got this card, and those are the 3 tenets of green burial as far as I'm concerned. No embalming, no burial vaults, no impervious containers. That's my elevator talk right there on the business card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think there are a lot of different ways to talk to people, and I think it often depends on the type of group. For instance, when we did a piece, we did a faith communities, and how to talk to faith communities about green burial at our last peer-to-peer forum. And there was discussion in that about the difference between just speaking to perhaps an adult education group or a social justice group or something like that, outside of the congregation meeting for worship or for fellowship. And then there is the rare opportunity that I get to speak from the pulpit, which gives me a very different way of being able to reach people. I'm able to talk about those basics that Anne is talking about. And but I'm also able to dig a little bit deeper into my background as a PR person, into better persuasion and finding very personal ways to connect with people who are in that congregation. And I honestly try to use that. It doesn't matter. I might be talking to a group of attorneys, even it's talking to medical examiners. These are all kinds of constituencies. We need to be reaching professionals as well as an average layperson. We need to create supply and demand, and we need to make sure that all the processes that are involved are all on board and understand what's happening. But I do find that all the facts are really great. They matter, but personal stories are critically important. Connecting to other people's stories is critically important when you're advocating. Almost everybody has got a funeral gone wrong story for you. So the number one thing I work on when I get one of those is, how can I turn that around to show them what a positive situation could look like without, I want to acknowledge that they went through something very difficult, but I also want to move the conversation toward the solution instead. So who's next? Who's got an idea?
Lee, do you want to mention the Barna book, especially for our friends in Evansville?
Yeah,
they're a church. I don't know if they've seen the book. It's such a great book.
It's called A Christian Ending by Elizabeth and I think Mark Barna. Is that right? And it is really helpful. It puts it into a more of a religious context. But there are a lot of books that you'll see on the website. Check all those out.
Lee, I'd like to say something about this.
I was just going to call on you, Harold. Welcome.
Okay. Oh, good. Hi. Yes, I'm a UU, and in our local UU fellowship here in California, Central California, we've done kind of the pulpit thing. So we've actually put together a little discussion course. And after looking around, I couldn't find much, so I kind of created my own syllabus for a 3-session discussion class about green burial. And so, we'll see how it goes. Our first session is this Friday, but it seems like it's gotten a lot of interest. As soon as, you mention something like this, people are very interested in engaging and wanting to talk about it. And, as you talk about it, it seems like more questions come up than answers. And, none of us are experts on everything that comes up. So, I've been taking a lot of notes with people's questions and then looking things up and then researching it. So to that end, I started feeling that there's a lot of kind of institutional knowledge that is being shared through these video chats and on the fabulous Green Burial Council website. But I'm hoping for a little more networking on a more local geographic area. So I'm from California. And so far, I don't know if any of you are from California. Most of the people that I've talked to seem to be in east of the Mississippi River. And it seems to be more popular there. So I'm trying to put together a California green burial network that we can actually have some sharing things, have a wiki that we could actually share information that way, plus through a listserv. So if anyone here is from California or anyone else who's from California who would be interested, I'm putting this together with some help from Lee and others. And I want to see what people think about it and see if we can get something going. California is sort of unique in a lot of our laws and a lot of our approaches. And as I've been working on kind of getting together this wiki, it's really nice to have things like in our state, our Cemetery and Funeral Bureau, the state agency that oversees cemeteries, has in their consumer guide a link to the Green Burial Council and actually, mentions green burial as a viable option available to people in California. I think some states maybe don't have that. So there's an advocacy project right there. Make sure your state agency or your local county has this information. So I don't know, there's several different ideas there, but I'm kind of interested in the California, and I'm interested in the working with churches. I gave a presentation recently to a Sierra Club group, and a minister came up from the United Church of Christ and was just really begging for having more of this kind of information in her church. So I think the potential is out there for all of us to be getting out there and sharing our information and collaborating.
Wonderful, Harold. Thank you. Those are some more really great ideas. You know, I'd like to introduce Sam Perry to the crowd here too. Sam, if you would step up to the mic. A few years ago, I designed a course for mortuary students in school, so that our funeral directors would start coming out of school understanding more about green funerals in general, home funerals, home burial, green burial, all kinds of things related. Sam's a licensed funeral director, and he is now teaching the course. It goes a little beyond what we're talking about, but I think that it's the same, you know, it's another constituency, it's another way of approaching. And maybe, Sam, you could speak to what this might mean to funeral directors being part of the advocacy force that we're putting out there. They're not the enemy. They're with us. They're the ones who really need us to get things up and moving so that they can serve their families. So do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I've actually noticed a lot of funeral directors on here in the chat, so that's really exciting to see. Yeah. So I do teach a course on green burial to the industry through Mid-America, because of Lee. And I am a Hoosier as well, I'd wanted to mention. I'm from the Indianapolis area, so but I currently live in Southern Illinois. And kind of speaking to the gentleman from California, I've actually felt the same way about the Midwest, that you know, it's almost like we don't have a network of folks here in the Midwest who can speak to this. So that's a project that we should start. But as far as the funeral directors go, I noticed someone speaking about old school funeral directors, and I think that that has been my biggest challenge as a mortician interested in green burial, is being able to convince or speak to funeral directors who are very have lots of questions about this, and how do we approach them. I think a good point that Anne made was about having sort of an elevator speech, having a short little snippet of something that you say that kind of speaks to your community. Saying that no embalming is okay, that having a biodegradable casket's okay, and not having a vault is okay, and that we can work with families to have this option. Something else that we talk about in the course is creating a rapport with your community. So as a funeral director, you can really create a deeper, more positive rapport with your community by offering this option, because they see that you care about the environment, care about these other options, care about different things that they can care about the community, so through green burial. I don't know if I spoke really to your question, Lee. Sorry, but yeah, I guess what else could we talk about? I feel a little on the spot. Sorry.
It's okay. You did good, Sam. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted people to know about that as well. There are many different ways that we're getting the word out there. I did just get a question on chat that I answered, and it's something that I hadn't shown anybody, and I had teed it up and hoped to. I'm going to stop for just a quick minute to answer this, because this is a burning question that people have about, it's hard to advocate for something when you can't offer to people that it exists. And here's what I'm talking about are the green burial cemeteries in the US and Canada. So I'm going to steal your screen again for a quick minute, if I can get myself organized here with it. And this is the website that I keep for the state of New Hampshire. But living on this is this particular list. And this list I keep for pretty much every, every nonprofit that has to do with this business in the country. And you'll notice that there are several people as we go through that are probably going to be familiar to you. But this is a long, long list. I don't want to make you blind, but this is where you're going to find it. Just go to nhfuneral.org and you'll come up to the main page, and you want to go right over to resources, green burial cemeteries in the US and Canada. We're up at around 270 or so cemeteries now in the US. I also highly recommend this book from Ann Hoffner. And she's just about to republish it, and it's got all the cemeteries in the, state by state as well. And we work together to make sure that that's accurate. So that's my quick share for you. It's the biggest question I get at the end of every talk is, okay, this is great. You sold me. I'm ready for it. Where can I go? And I have to say, well, there aren't any near us. So go to that list, find whatever is close to you, use that information, map it out even, make it one of your slides that shows on a map where those green burial cemeteries are that are near you. And make contact with those cemeteries so that you're promoting them accurately, because you want to be sure that you have the right information for people. So I hope that helps answer that question and gets you all to a new place. By the way, the reason that it's not on the Green Burial Council website is that the GBC is also a certification organization. So the only thing we really put on our website for cemeteries are those that are certified. It would be kind of a conflict of interest for us to put up another list of non-certified ones, although I drive people to this other list as often as I can. So feel free to use that. Who's next? Who's got something to add, offer, ask?
I had a follow-up for Sam, because we had talked about reaching out to funeral directors. One of the commissioners wants to write letters to all the local funeral directors and tell them that we have green burial, and what he was saying just touched on that a little bit. What would be a good way to, what do they want to hear about that? Or, I don't want to insult, obviously they know all about this stuff. Just what points would be good to make. I think creating a rapport with community, like you said, is really useful, but I was just wondering if you had any other thoughts about that.
So I think an important thing to first bring up is that that embalming is not required by law. And that you're looking for options that don't involve embalming or a metal casket. Maybe mentioning to them that you're interested in handling the body, washing the body, if that's something that you want to do. Usually a funeral director, if they understand that from the get-go, that you're interested in these things, they're going to be more willing to work with you on that aspect. I think a lot of times when I've talked to funeral directors about green burial, they're like, no one's asked me about that, so why would I offer that? And it's like, well, if you don't offer it, why would they ask for it? So the first thing is just to ask, and let them know, hey, I know embalming is not required by law. I know I don't have to have a casket. This is how I want to do it. How can you help me do that? And that would be an important thing to do. Let them know that you know the law, and that you know that this can be an option for you. How can they help you make that an option for yourself? I think is a good way to go about it.
Great, thanks.
Add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Add something to that. I think with funeral directors, with the kind of the non-popularity of cremation, on their end, I think as green burial, if we can, reassure them in our talking to them about it, that it's not doesn't have to take away from their business, that a family can still have a funeral and a proper service and we'll need them to facilitate this, which is our jobs. And they're not, that I think that would help them present it as an option to families when they're talking, and I think at this stage of the game, even though green burial's been around since the dawn of time, I think it was the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Romans, I just had a test on all that stuff. But, it seems new because not many people have done it in the last several hundred years in the US. And that right now it should be definitely mentioned in the pre-planning, and maybe not so much at need. It's got to be difficult. I don't think I'd want to make that decision for my own parent. But as families start to do it and it becomes a family tradition, I think things will be a little bit, I think we have to look to the future and really build a good foundation here.
You bring up an interesting point that I always try to make when I'm out talking about this, and that is the fact that green burial is actually bringing back those rituals and ceremonies that we've been losing steadily over time, because people are trying to save money, or they're in a hurry or whatever. Green burial brings that back because we offer the opportunity for family participation and graveside service. So I think that's a big selling point when we're out advocating for this, to be able to say, we're not just making things more affordable. We're not just making them more environmentally friendly. We're trying very hard to make this even more meaningful. We're trying to bring that back. And I think it's a big selling point in all of our advocacy work. I want to stop here and go back to a big question that we just got from Lindsay. Lindsay, are you on? I'm trying to find you here. I'm not seeing you or hearing you. I'm just going to go ahead and answer the question that Lindsay has posed here, which is, at what point is someone qualified enough to speak to groups on this topic? You know what? We're all experts, as long as we've done our homework. Do your homework, do the reading, and start talking, because what's going to happen when you get out there, you're not putting yourself out there as an expert, you're putting yourself out there as an advocate. Any of us can have an opinion and have some information and share it with other people. And what's going to happen with that exchange? It's what Sam was saying. We're building relationships around this topic, and you're going to learn just as much as the other person is as you go forward. You don't have to stand in front of people, go and think you know the answers to everything. There's not a talk that I give that I don't say, I don't know that, I'll go find out for you. All right. So don't be shy. If you're in this call and you know what you know, just keep working till you feel confident. And all of the materials we've put together for you are to help you become confident enough to share with other people. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. You can do it. There's my pep talk. Who else has got something? We have a couple more minutes left.
Could I ask a question? This is Maya.
Please.
I heard you mention that it's less expensive, but the couple that I've checked out that are around here are way more expensive than having a cremation, or I think even than a traditional burial.
Yeah, we can. I just finished answering a reporter's question on this, so the numbers are actually pretty fresh in my mind. While I was doing some legislative work to provide testimony for some law changes a couple of years ago, I needed to do a quick survey to get at the root of this affordability issue. And what I found in a very small informal survey was that the average green burials plot in the US, it was a very small sample. So we're going to redo this soon and we'll have better numbers for you. But at that point, it was $2,700 compared to what Everplans was putting out at the same exact period of time, saying that it was somewhere between $4,100 and I think $9,000 or something. Now, here's the kicker, all right? I can get a $400 plot in my local green burial cemetery here in New Hampshire. If you live in Brooklyn, New York, and you want to be buried in the green section of Greenwood Cemetery, you're starting at about $18,000. Cemetery plots, the way that we do them in the US, are real estate, and it's location, location, location. It's just like every other kind of real estate. So when you get hit with this question, when you're with people, try to know what the local pricing is for plots. And I mean, when Green Burial cemeterians call me and say, what's going on? What should I charge? I say, well, it's like everything else. It's what the market will bear. But what will your market bear? And what are you planning to do with the money? It's another good question. One of Foxfield Cemetery in Ohio charges $4,000 for a burial plot. It also includes everything. It's opening and closing and a ceremony and all kinds of things. But half of that goes back to the land trust. And families are more than happy to pay for that because they're furthering conservation goals. So this is a complicated question. It's not just, oh, it's more affordable or it's more expensive. There are definitely cemeterians out there who are exploiting this because of the rarity of them. So we have some issues around that. We have some social justice issues around affordability and accessibility. We're just going to have to keep our eyes on it. I hope that's helpful. Mainly you figuring out how to speak to people in your, that you're talking to about it. Yeah, being prepared.
Something that I do, Lee, is I start from the other end. Because we've got some hybrids where you can buy a plot and be buried green or conventionally in the same plot, costs the same money. And I start from the end and I say, you're not going to be embalming, so you're saving that money. You're not going to be buying an expensive casket. You may wrap the body in a shroud, an old quilt from your family, cotton sheet. You may buy a $1,000 pine box, or you may buy one of the cardboard alternative containers for $200 or $300. So your expenses are automatically lowered because you're not buying the vault, which could be $1,500 to $3,500 and up. So you've got those savings. And a point I wanted to make about something Sam said, and I agree with Lee on the social justice issue. And I have been to some African-American funeral homes because I get pushback during talks sometimes from African-Americans about green burial. And I wanted the funeral director's take on this. Well, something that is a problem for some of the African-American funeral directors in our areas, they don't have refrigeration. And so if a family is not willing to keep their body at home, then it goes to the mortuary, to the funeral home. And the African-Americans can do nothing other than embalm because they don't have any refrigeration. So I explained to them how a home funeral guide keeps a body cool with Techni-Ice or little blue bricks that you've got that you put in your lunch cooler, or dry ice or that kind of thing. And I said, we're not trying to get something for free here. And if you need to have somebody around the clock changing out the Techni-Ice every 4 hours, you build that into the price. And people may be willing to pay the same amount of money for that sort of refrigeration as opposed to filling the earth with more chemicals. I haven't gotten a whole lot of positive response from them, but there's an argument you can make.
It's a cost savings for sure. Yeah, great. I want to get Jenny in here. Jenny Small had a question for us.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay. I had a question in regard to that about social justice, about doing kind of outreach within like people of color, within the community. How are people reaching out to those parts of the communities? Because I often find the conversation is very, it's highly white female, is a lot of the conversation and the advocacy. And I'm just like, I work in the environment. I work for an environmental firm as well, and it's a question within our firm as well, is just like, how do you outreach to communities and educate and get your foot in the door to give them, you know, the information that maybe they're not getting, and invite them into this conversation?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one I think that we're all dealing with, because it's not up to us to proselytize to groups that are not open to, you know, to having a bunch of old white ladies coming at them with their solution to problems of the world. And yet we are trying to reach a more diverse group. It's really, in my mind, it's about just meeting people where they are, no matter who they are, if they're ready to hear this message. But I would welcome other people who might have a little bit more active approach.
I've actually had students, people of color who are students who are people of color who have been really against the idea too. And so I've actually been kind of struggling with this question myself. But I've been looking to the Radical Death Studies. It's a newer group that just kind of was created in 2019, and it's led by a couple very educated and women of color. And they've actually spoken to this point. I don't really have an answer for you. I'm just a white guy, and but they like are speaking to that cause, and I've been looking for answers there. So maybe if you look at their website, you might find something as well.
Thanks for that resource.
Good. All right, we're closing in on time here. Does anyone have one last question or comment they want to put forward? All right.
I'll ask a quick question. There's been a lot of group chat to Dawn about advocating with already existing cemeteries and funeral homes. I'm from Utah, and we have one teeny tiny hybrid cemetery in the entire state. And I don't have the capacity to, you know, buy up a huge chunk of land and start my own. And so my idea of advocacy around here would be to either talk to people that already own land for cemetery and convince them that the market is there, you know, to open up a green section, or what type of people, who do we contact? Is that realtors, or who to see, you know, investors or realtors to say, you know, where's a large chunk of land that this would be, you could convince somebody to start it up?
Yeah, good question. There's quite a bit involved in that answer, but let me give you a couple ideas. One first is to locate your local land trust and find out if they have land on the books that they might be interested in selling, which they often do. They're often land trusts are gifted things that they really can't use, or they don't have the conservation value that they need. Another is to look around, and you could go to your state cemetery association and find out if there are any historical cemeteries near you that are just sitting there not being cared for, that you might pick up. Sometimes the town will have taken those over, town or city, and they would be more than happy to have someone else manage them. And they can be, because they didn't have vaults to begin with, they can be converted to green burial cemeteries. Here's another piece that's coming up that you should know about. I mean, I'm in contact with people almost daily who are saying, I'm working with X number of people and we're trying to figure out how to do it. We're getting something going, we'll be live soon. So I can tell you that within the next, well, throughout the summer period, I'm expecting at least another probably 40 or 50 cemeteries to come online. And you said you're in Idaho or Utah?
I'm in Utah.
You're in Utah. Okay. I've been talking to people in both Utah, mainly Idaho, but a couple in Utah. So there are people there who are also trying to get things up and going. So one of the efforts I'm trying to get organized here and get permission from these people who are in the works, you know, they aren't always willing to be public about it, but I'm trying to get permission from a lot of these folks so that we can post it up there and do what Harold's talking about in California and get you all connected to each other. So that we can really, you know, I think that is that's probably the greatest strength as advocates and as potential, you know, green burial. I guess if you're not going to be an owner, at least an associate to owners, supporters to people who are going to be running these cemeteries. That probably the best thing we could do is start to get more regional groups organized so that we all know we're all in our own little silos and we need to figure out how to get connected to each other. So again, you know, I want to be mindful of the time. It's time to go. But one of the ways we can do this is to get as many people onto the peer-to-peer forum on Facebook so that you can connect to each other, find, you know, put a call out and say, who do you know in this area, and we'll start to gather those names together and do some more networking around it. So I think that's what I've got for you for today. We've got a lot of great comments and interesting things here, and we're gonna, you know, Kim and I will get busy and put all those together. We'll answer whatever questions didn't get answered and send you all of that good stuff. So